Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. First and foremost, and this is really, really important, for those of you that have not or unaware of that, if we notice my Church Windows version here in the upper right corner, see my swirling little cursor there, shows 24.22.2. 24.22.2. We released that patch last week, late last week, I think it was last week, early last week. It fixes lots of little bugs in the payroll, in the setup and reports. So please get that update installed on your Church Windows as quickly as possible to make sure that you are getting the latest rounds of fixes and patches for problems in the payroll software. I mean, in Church Windows in general, but the bulk of the things that we're fixing are in the new payroll. Okay, and there have been a couple of enhancements in there that we've tried to clarify and streamline some processes. You know, that's part of the process of releasing and developing a new program. And so we are continuing to develop and enhance payroll as we hear from folks what's working and or not working, as the case may be. Okay. So again, please get that patch. If you're having any issues with the install or the update, or after installing it you have any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, 800-533-5227. Our support technicians will be happy to help. Okay. Also, the important thing to keep in mind is Church Windows Payroll only does what is set up to do or instructed to do, okay, based on what you set up about this, okay? There's if nothing at all in payroll that it doesn't rely on user setup to do. So basically that's what we're sort of alluding to is in this webinar is you've got to go into payroll and you want to make sure that things are set up so the software does what it's being told to do correctly, okay? And if it's not, then we're going to have to fix that. But here's the thing to keep in mind. Anything can be fixed, all right? So if you've done something wrong, here we are, you know, we're at the end of March of 2022, March 22nd of 2023, excuse me. And if you've done something wrong, it can still be fixed, okay? But you have to know what that is, okay? Church Windows Payroll it just does what it does based on what you're set up. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here momentarily. So all of this kind of has to do with sort of tying it all back to, you know, checking it up, checking the data. Many of you may have brought over payroll data from the old payroll software, and it's definitely important that you go in and do your checking of your deductions and your allowances and local taxes, and maybe even setting up new things like the miscellaneous taxes, okay? But I'll try to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Checkup, again, part of the checkup process is the 2023 federal tax tables have changed and less taxes are being withheld. I've had a dozen or a couple dozen calls just since the beginning of 2023 where users called me and said, oh, the employees are not having any federal income tax withheld from their checks. What gives about that? Okay, well, even our HR administrator came to me and said, hey, or came to us, you know, sent a company-wide email or message to us and said, hey, folks, tax tables have been reduced, you know, for this year, so you're paying in less federal income tax. Let me know if that's not enough and you're worried that you're going to get dinged, and I can withhold additional tax for you, okay? Folks, you wouldn't be surprised how often we get that call where somebody calls me in, you know, June or July or August or September. Oh, my employee just came to me and said there's no federal tax coming out of their check. And my simple question, you know, sort of in the back of my mind, but it's really true, is this really the first time that they've looked at their check for the year? Okay. So you may want to go to your employees and say, hey, folks, please look at your checks, look at your taxes, you know, and one of the things that I first show folks is under my reports and export right here under tax reports and tax forms, not tax forms. I'm coming back to that. Tax reports, federal tax tables. So this is going to show here for 2023, single filing status, married filing status. You know, so right now we see that federal taxes don't begin to be withheld until we see the employee has made, $14,800, and so this is not an uncommon occurrence. And for something like single, and again, this is all based in combination of whatever they have set up in their employee file. These are basically the amounts that are considered non-taxable income. And so the software may not be withholding tax based on where we are in the year and what it may consider or try to attempt to annualize as the employee's income. So if necessary, you can go into employees, contractors. If an employee says, yeah, I want you to withhold, $20 per check, regardless of whatever tax tables are or not doing, you find the employee, you go to the tax tab right here under federal, you put include additional amount percent and just plug in that amount or percent that they want you to withhold automatically. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that at some point maybe federal taxes may begin to be withheld systematically, but you've got to ask the employees to assume responsibility for what the taxes or what the software is doing based on their setup. Okay. Yeah, and if no taxes are being withheld, have them tell you an amount or percent they want you to withhold each pay. And this is where you come into their employee file under the tax tab, federal tax, and enter that, okay? A lot of times a job for a church for an employee is maybe a second job or not a full-time or primary job, and therefore they're unaware. Taxes are not always being withheld based on that. And the government has deliberately reduced those tax tables for 2023. Okay. All right. Other things to check. Run the history report to see what your W-2 and 941 totals are. Okay. And this is really important that you do that after installing the SR2 so you have the most latest fixes and patches. So we go to reports and export, pay reports, history report, federal taxable earnings, withholdings, and net pay detail. This report is the one that most closely resembles or matches the information as it'll appear on the 941 form or for the employee's W-2s, okay? So here, if I run this, say, through March 31st, and I just do totals only down the right side and click print, it takes a second for this to pop up, but these totals that appear down here, federal taxable compensation, most likely is going to be the amount that I think is going to appear in what? Box 2 on the 941 for the wages for the period. Okay. That's all of my payroll for all employees collectively for the first quarter. Also, federal withheld amount, so these amounts parallel what those reports show. Okay. If we want to see what the employees are going to look like individually, what you want to do here is go down the right side and change it from totals only to per payee. And if you want to see them even separate from that, choose page break on each employee. These totals would now match what would be on their, say, W-2 form, for the first quarter. So all of this information is here and available for you folks to be able to help determine whether an employee, whether something's set up correctly or not. Okay. So here we've got our senior pastor, Larry. Here's his federal taxable compensation. He's got non-taxable allowances, in this case, his housing allowance. He's got non-taxable deductions, most likely things like pension or health insurance contributions. So again, all of these information columns will help tell you whether something is set up for an employee or not. Okay, and if I go now to the next page, scroll down, I'm going down into, and it'll even show the net check amount, folks, to the far right here, if you notice on the far right column. And then here, my part-time custodian and part-time organist, Jimmy Hilliard, here's his federal taxable compensation. He has no non-taxable allowances. He's not a minister. He has certainly some non-taxable deductions, maybe again health insurance or pension contributions. Shows his Medicare and Social Security withheld, as well as his federal income tax. And if we go up again to Larry up here, we notice he's a minister, no Social Security and Medicare withheld for him because that's a perk or benefit of being a minister. So again, let the reports tell you, Okay, what is going on? You've got lots of available information at your fingertips about how this is right here in payroll to help you understand where payroll is set up correctly. And if it's not, folks, you just have to pick up the phone and call us. But me, even as a technician, I'm just going to reinforce this, is you have to know what's wrong. I don't know. None of my technicians do. Okay, if you tell me what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, I can walk you through it. But you have to know. We don't know. All right. And again, one of the things I was writing this document about this was, or this the outline for this was, why we're talking about this now is because payroll problems get more difficult to clean up the longer it goes on. So if you can resolve those now, it's better to fix it before we file our 941 for quarter one, okay? Because I can fix it now, and then I don't have to worry about going back and doing a 941X or anything else, historically, if I can fix it now. So try to find those problems now, not later. Okay. Check your setup of your allowances and your deductions. When I go to data setup here, if I go into allowances, got lots of information here, right here. So here's all of my allowances. And a lot of folks are overlooking these tabs here in the upper right. Okay, so we've got details. So it tells us exactly the setup of the flat rate automobile allowance or group term life or housing. Okay, what's its description? Does it show separately in a W-2 box? What is it taxable for? But in addition to that, you've got these totals tabs here. Okay, so right here it shows us exactly what our pastor's housing allowance totals have been for each one of the months for 2023. Okay, and which employees and what their totals are as well. All right, and that is true for not only allowances, folks, but for deductions as well. Okay, so pension 403B, I just use this because you can check this for all of them, but it shows pension 403B right here. It shows the taxable setup of it, what it's how it should report on the W-2, totals for 2023, and I can look at that for prior years as well. Okay, without even changing the payroll year. Okay, but right here, and what the employees are and what their amounts are. Okay, so again, lots of information. The really big one here, and I want to just take a minute or two before I move on to the final section here, is these local taxes and miscellaneous taxes, folks. These are really tricky. We readily admit that there's been some growing pains associated with the new payroll. Okay, that's kind of putting it nicely or kindly, but you want to try to be proactive to get this stuff sorted out. The old payroll maybe had something set up as a local tax that maybe now should be set up as a miscellaneous tax, okay? These miscellaneous taxes are not federal, they're not state, they're not necessarily even considered local. They are literally miscellaneous taxes, okay? Common examples would be things like these, either like, I'm thinking of just something's coming to mind here, these local a transit tax in like the state of Oregon, or even things like Pennsylvania and EITs and LSTs and Connecticut, and more of these are popping up. They're not the normal traditional three to taxing federal, state, or local taxing authorities. They're these other miscellaneous taxes. And we've added this into the software, this miscellaneous tax option. And you can, again, just like we do with the local taxes or other things, is we can come in here and look over here on the right under details and see exactly what the setup is for it. Okay. And if it's wrong, you may need to go in and create a new one that's set up correctly and then maybe do some adjustments to fix it. But you've got to look. The software only enters what you set it up to do. Okay. We don't set up any of these local or miscellaneous taxes. You do. And if you're unsure about that, folks, contact your local taxing authority, Department of Revenue, or the state, or what have you. Ask them for the information that you need so they know what the correct setup for that is. So you know what the correct setup is for that, okay? And once you've got that, if you're unsure how to get those when you're in the software, reach out to us. Maybe visit the Resource Center. Look in your help files. Look right here again. I don't think I have anything on here for folks here because we don't have these miscellaneous taxes. But right here, you've got totals and employees again. All right. I do under local. So right here, I've got some local taxes here. So right here, Columbus. Yeah, there we go. So Columbus 23 even shows me employees that had local taxes withheld for that. Okay. Um, and again, you might be able to edit them using the edit function, but you got to know and you got to you got to call me, and I can't help you if you don't call me. All right. None of my technicians people can. All right. All right. One more thing before we go into the very final portion of this is under payroll reports and export pay reports, we've got this new section called detail reports. Okay. Allowances, deductions, local taxes, and miscellaneous. This is the summary, the individual breakdown and summary report for all four of these items. Okay. And I'm going to use local taxes as an example. Okay. So if I want to go and look and see what my local tax withholdings are for the first quarter of 2023, I'm just putting in January 1 through March 31st. Okay. Then I'm going to go to columns. I'm going to go to report details. It has total over here on the right. Good. We're good. We're going to go to print. So what this is going to do now is it's going to detail all of the employees' local taxable wages and what each individual's local taxes were that were withheld. And right down here at the very bottom, I've got total local taxes for quarter one, and it breaks it down by my local taxes. And you would have the same report under miscellaneous taxes or deductions or allowances. These are your grand totals that should be transferred into accounting and allow you to quickly summarize and total those for your reporting needs or for your payment needs or whatever or what have you. Okay. All right. We're running out of time here. Check the balance sheet in accounting, folks. Make sure it's in balance. Okay, there has been a problem with that in 2023 with the new payroll. Make sure that your total assets equals your total liabilities and fund balance. Okay, I'm going to go a couple minutes long here, folks, but this is important. So if I go into reports and export, financial balance sheet, and say I run it through today, that's fine, through March 2023. I want to make sure that your total assets figure, in this case in the year-to-date balance, 1,686,713.90 equals the total liabilities and fund balance figure at the bottom, 1,686,713.90. If it's not, we need you to contact us, okay? There are problems and bugs that we've been working out through this. We can fix this, and as I said, we're continuing to resolve and work through these things as we're kind of figuring them out as we're hearing them from folks. And we're getting close, but there may be still some times when this shows up. And if it does, then we need to hear from you so we can get that fixed. This balance sheet should never, ever be out of balance, okay? Finally, and sorry folks, it's 1:20. I'm going to go a couple minutes long here on this, but this is important. Some of you may be experiencing what I did when I went into my tax reports, right up here, tax forms, getting this a procedure entry point error again, entry point not found. This has something that's kind of shown up again after the SR2 was installed. You can fix it. You need to open up your internet browser and go to our website right here under Resource Center. If you're on the cloud, you do not need to do this. We're ensuring the cloud is fixed on this. So if you're a Church Windows web user, you should not be getting this. But right here, if I go to right here, let me type it in here, entry, and right here, error running tax reports, entry point not found. This simply needs to be run on the machine where you are running, trying to open the tax forms. This is important for your 941 form that is now available through Atrix as of yesterday or the day before. So I'm going to run this real quick, and hopefully this will get this problem fixed. So we're going to choose open when done. We're going to exit out of Church Windows. It's going to require that we do that. So let's get out of here and exit all the way out, and it should start my installer momentarily. There it is. We're going to run this. Takes only just a few seconds. here to do this. And we're going to get this fixed permanently in the SR3, but you literally just go next, next, and install. It goes through its gyrations. I just want to try to help you get this stuff sorted out, without you having to call us, when you're going, oh, I'm trying to run my 941 for Q1 and I'm getting this entry point not found error again. Arg, I get it. It's frustrating. But this is the fix, and it is literally that simple. Okay, so now if I relaunch my church windows one more time here, hopefully it should come up here fairly quickly. Come on, there it is. 2422.2, nothing changed on that, okay? But now when I get in here, he said, trying to just kind of kill time here, payroll, when we go back into reports and export, tax reports, tax forms, it should, okay?